I didn't hate Alice in Borderland season 3, but it definitely was a notable drop off from what the series built up in seasons 1 and 2. And the more I think about it, the more I realize that the issue isn't one single thing. It's a combination of choices that slowly chipped away at what made the show work in the first place. I'm going to break down all of that section by section because season 3 should have been the most intense, the most emotional, most narrative heavy part of the story, and instead it felt like a softer, duller version of itself. So here are 7 reasons why season 3 did not live up to the hype that many others, including myself, had for it. Now also, I keep getting taken down for copyright strikes, so enjoy whatever video game that I am playing as B-roll. One of the most obvious changes in season 3 was the atmosphere. Season 1 and 2, it felt like this constant pressure was in the air, like everything was trying to kill you, the world itself was trying to kill you, the streets were empty and felt very eerie and uneasy, and the silence felt hostile. And every time a character stepped into a new area, you got this new sense of unease, this new sense of like dread. And the oppressive tension was like the heartbeat of the series. It like kept you watching because you didn't know what the fuck was going to happen. And the world feels more open now in season 3 and like way less dangerous, way less mysterious. And there's not really that sense of dread, that same sense of dread that there was in the beginning of the series. And it's not so subtle either. It just feels like season 3 was like cleaner, more polished. Like, even though there was a lot of like deaths or whatever, right? It just didn't feel as, it felt like it was like more mainstream friendly because it was a huge hit on Netflix. And I think they just changed the tone of it to like make it more palatable, I guess, for like a broader audience. It didn't feel like it had the same soul, right? And the problem is like when you have that dark atmosphere in Alice in Borderland, once you strip that away, the story just doesn't hit you the same as it did. Even if the games were technically dangerous and people were still dying and there was still this like almost there was this objective to just keep doing what you wanted to do, so you could, keep doing the games so you don't die. It just didn't feel like it was as scary as like the previous seasons because you just didn't know what was going on. And we're going to talk more about that in like a later point, but this was definitely this was like the first major crack that I saw in the season that really made it less fun to watch. And I definitely didn't binge this as much as I did like the first 2 seasons. Number 2 was the characters that don't land. They just, well, didn't land. One of the things that Alice in Borderland always did really well was like have these very memorable side characters and personalities. And season 1 had like a really good cast of characters. Some were even appeared in one episode and became fan favorites, right? Season 2 kind of expanded upon that. It added more people to the to the mix, right? And it was cool. A lot of these characters were cool. But these new characters, they just don't have the same weight, the same emotional depth as the characters in the past. And that's like a huge thing. And it's, for lack of a better word, like the characters really do not have aura. Like they just don't. They just fall pretty flat. And they just feel like pawns. They're just here to do the games and then hopefully they survive. Yeah, cool. Yeah. Oh, you want to survive with me? Yeah, let's do it. It just doesn't feel as impactful. It doesn't feel as fun. It doesn't feel as dynamic as like the previous seasons did. And there are some really good characters in season 3, but one of them was already a character from the previous season, so I don't really count him. It was Kazuya. Like he did a great job. He was a character I really liked. And then Akito in the zombie game, I think he did a really good job. But everyone else, I didn't really like them at all. Like Nobu and all the other people. The guy that was like going through like drug withdrawals or something. None of them really grabbed my attention. And that is a huge part of the show because we build this connection with these characters before they meet their demise, very similar to Game of Thrones, where it's like, damn, like when a character dies, you're like, fuck, man, that sucks. But when these characters died, most of them that died, I was like, ah. And like some of them that died, I was like, are they like they made some big deal of it? And I'm thinking to myself, are these even are these even main characters? Are these characters they would think we should care about? Because some of the characters that died in like the kick the can game, I was like, I don't really care. Like it doesn't matter to me at all. So yeah, I felt like the characters were pretty lacking in this series, or in season 3 for sure. And the also a huge thing too is like the plot between, this is like a side, like a bonus thing, but Arisu and Usagi didn't feel like nearly as like connected as they did in the previous seasons. It felt like they were like it felt like they had no chemistry in season 3 when they actually had pretty good chemistry in season 1 and 2. So I'm just not sure exactly what happened between them, but for some reason, like none of the characters really like vibe together. It felt like everyone was playing like their own solo game and just so happened to like be around other people. And like especially when you have, I think like the King of Clubs game was a masterpiece. It was the magnum opus uh of the, I think it was season 2. It was just this intense, like everything was emotional and high stakes, and like these characters were the show. The characters were driving everything. And in season 3, there's nothing on that level because it just wasn't as focused on character development or layering characters or layering plot lines with the characters. It just didn't feel like, it felt like a very fragmented, segmented season when everything else was like connected and moved synergistically. This one didn't feel like that. Number 3 was the stakes felt way lower, even though they were supposed to feel way higher. So season 3 should have been the biggest endeavor in the Borderland, right? Because they're back, they know about the Borderland. So now it's like, okay, well, since they already know about the Borderland, there should be something even crazier going on, because it's like a new layer, a new dynamic to add to the season. Because we already know about the Borderland, right? They already fucking did all the games. So what's going to happen, right? So in season 1 and 2, we just didn't know what was going on. We didn't know what the rules were for the universe. We didn't know how many people were going to survive. We didn't know just how they got there, anything like that. So we're like finding out slowly and slowly and slowly what is going on, and we're piecing it together. Season 3 basically doesn't do that at all. It feels like the stakes were like infinitely lower, because it's like all they have to do is just play the games and win. Whereas before, it felt very much like, okay, it was the games, but also this universe was like really dangerous that they were in. And just season 3 doesn't transmit that same energy. The games like don't feel as threatening, partly because the tone around them is like softer, and partly because the writing gives a subtle sense of like plot armor. I don't think intentionally, but the way the scenes are framed and the way the characters talk, like it just feels like the danger just isn't there, right? The characters aren't even like worried really about the games. From what it seems to me, they're just worried about like surviving, and the games are like, oh, it's whatever, right? Whereas before, it used to be this like psychological like warfare type of game, where the characters were not just worried about dying, but the characters were worried about like how the universe was like affecting them, because they were watching people die and get fucking killed in like brutal ways, and they're like unraveling, right? And it creates this sense of like panic in me, the viewer. And when you're in that state, you don't often make really good decisions. So the stakes always felt higher, because it felt like no matter if you were in the game, if you were outside of the game, like something was going to happen that was going to get you killed. But it felt like the stakes here were just way lower, because they already knew everything that was going on in the world, pretty much, like just past the games, and that's it, right? And it just made the stakes feel lower, and it made the whole series not feel as fun to progress through. And number 4 is, it tries to go bigger in terms of like the world building, but it also goes somehow smaller. So one of the biggest issues I had with season 3, actually, it feels less expansive than before. Like that's and it just doesn't feel great, because this is supposed to be the season where everything gets expanded upon, because we already been through the Borderlands. So like, what we got to find something new to uncover to make it interesting for us. And the writing clearly wants to make things like seem more ambitious in that direction, and you can feel that, but it's the way it's executed that makes the world infinitely smaller. The first 2 seasons, you were basically going through entire sections in of Tokyo in the city, huge empty streets, massive buildings, subway tunnels wrapped around malls, rooftops, industrial zones. You saw like the entire scale of the city, and the characters were just going through the entire abandoned city, like what the fuck is going on. And it felt like everything in that city was going to kill you. But in season 3 it doesn't necessarily do that. What it does is it basically puts all of the games in like these really tiny areas that are condensed, and it just feels like you're just moving from one room to another, and there's not really this sense of like progression. Like we started out in Shibuya station, and now we're in here, right? Now we're there, now we're here, now we're across the water. Like it just felt like they were progressing to get somewhere, whereas it felt almost like it was like they were in these like rooms in season 3, like, okay, let's get out of this room and we'll go to this room, and then we get it almost like Jigsaw in a way. And I just didn't feel as like fun to explore an adventure through the Borderlands, because it was so like segmented off in like a very small like section of the show. Number 5 is something I alluded to earlier. Is Erisu and Usagi were not only underused, but they had some weird thing going on. Usagi was like basically ignored their relationship. Like they were in a committed relationship, and she just goes randomly to like find her father in the Borderland. Like I just don't even really understand that aspect of it. But just even when they were together, it felt like something was like off about them. Like they didn't feel nearly as connected as they did before. So it felt like when they were brought back together, it like didn't fucking matter, And Arisu is one of the most like compelling protagonists in a show that I've seen in a long time, right? Season 1 explored his guilt and escapism. Season 2 explored his leadership, his trauma, his growth. And season 3 does like very little with him. He reacts to events. He barely even like shapes them. Like in the other games, in the previous seasons, even when they were not in the games, he was kind of like running shit, whether it be like behind the scenes or like leading the plot towards a certain destination. But this is just like, I'm just gonna do whatever they want me to do. And that's not really what we expected from him coming from the last like 2 seasons of the show. And he has moments, but it's not like development, right? And Usagi is even more sidelined. She's like physically present, like she's doing the same shit she did the last time she was in the games. Like she was like the athlete or whatever. But just their synergy, it just felt so off. It felt like she was just some like side character. Like she wasn't even the main character. It just didn't feel like, I don't know. It felt like everything barely evolved in the show. From like season 2 to season 3, there was almost no evolution in terms of like characters, and I would argue that some of these characters devolved. And these 2 characters are the emotional soil of the entire story. When they aren't growing or struggling or confronting something, the story loses a lot of grounding. And season 3 doesn't give them enough personal conflict or internal tension or relationship progression for them to really, I guess, compel the audience to care about them, or compel the audience to like them, or to even want to continue watching. I gotta say, it was pretty tough for me to watch like the last like 3 or 4 episodes, because I just felt like I didn't care if any of the characters lived or died, including the main group of characters, Usagi and Arisu, because they didn't feel like Usagi and Arisu. It felt like every single character was just some side character that was like underused and was used as a pawn to like push the plot forward, rather than like the characters pushing the plot forward, if that makes sense. Number 6 is the finale was pretty bad. A series finale doesn't need to explain everything, but it does need to feel like a conclusion, and this series did not. Like this season did not feel like a conclusion. it opens new mysteries, sure, new elements, but it leaves the most important questions unresolved. And not in an artistic way, but in a way that feels like they either ran out of time or intentionally avoided answering to keep things mysterious or to avoid plot holes, maybe. The problem is season 1 and 2 are building towards something. It was like to escape the Borderlands. Season 3 gives you the outline that like that's something like it gives you the outline that it has that something, but it's not, that's not the substance. Like that doesn't feel like anything, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense or not. It just feels incomplete, I would say. Not because the answers weren't satisfying, but because the show didn't even really try to give them. They basically like the Joker or whoever the Watchman came out, and he basically just spoke in a bunch of riddles or whatever. I don't even understand really what that whole point was. I don't know. There wasn't really like this satisfying resolution. Of course, I understand this is likely a build up to season 4, which they already foreshadowed, but I truly don't feel like I cared about the climax of this like intense run through of the Borderlands. It felt like they were just trudging along until the end of the games because like they've played these games before, like fucking Squid Games, right? Like they've played the games before, so they know once the games are over, they can go back to the land of the living. So all they have to do is survive the games. And it just felt like that was it. It was just them surviving the games. But it just, there was not another dynamic to like make you care about the end of the games, the climax, like the climax of like we're done, you know? I just felt like it didn't matter. And it leaves the audience with the worst kind of feeling, and it's, is that it? And that's exactly how I felt too. Is as soon as I was done this series, I sat for like 2 minutes, like kind of thinking about it. And usually I do that whenever I'm done a movie or a series. I like sit for a second and I'm just thinking, okay, like I'm processing, did I like this? Like, was this satisfying to me? And this just was not satisfying to me. And I felt very empty in terms of what this gave me. Usually you can walk away with like, okay, that was really cool. It sucks this character died, but I really liked it. I walked away thinking like, damn, I don't even care what happens in season 4. Are they going to go back to the Borderlands again for the third time? I don't know, man. Like, or is season 4 going to be like everyone dies other than Erusu? Like, it would be pretty lame to see them go back to the Borderlands for the third time and just like replay a bunch of games. I don't know like how that's even going to play out, or if they're even going to play that out. But I just don't care, honestly. And I think that is the worst way to end a season, where it's like whether they continue to season 4 or not, I just don't care if they do.